You're too crazy. I'm so glad you're here. I missed you. Trouble's back in town. Can't believe my eyes. It's the most amazing man in the world. I missed you. You scruffled there. You jovially punched him on the arm. You wrapped him in a gentle embrace. You pulled him into it, bone-crushing him. You jumped into his arms. You smiled at him. I'd probably smile at him. Your smile fueled Cove's own, brightening him up even further. Being the focus of your joy and attention made a blush bloom on his skin like flowers blooming in spring. I missed you too. Even if he hadn't said it outright, you would have gotten the message from his body language. Cove was grinning widely, his raised cheeks baring his eyes, which gleamed like hidden gems. Did I get rid of his glasses? Huh. But he looked at you as if you were the most exciting treasure of all. How was the trip? Yeah, I had a great time. Cove told you about how the trip back had gone. His mom was doing really well. She had a project in the works that she was thrilled about. As a result, Cove was going to be sticking around in Sunsetburg for the time being. Things were settled as much as they ever could be. With Cove back once more, he felt at ease. Cove stretched his arms out over his head, his eyes on the window and the world beyond. The sun had set while you'd been busy reuniting.
Well,
I should probably get my stuff and see Dad. He glanced over at you with a familiar, expectant look. Want to come with me? I do. No, but I'll walk you downstairs. Sure, I can go over for a little while. You know I do.
cool.
Cove began to head to your bedroom door. You followed after him. He insisted on a piggyback ride. I would follow after him. The two of you casually went down to the ground floor of your house. In all the excitement of Cove's return, you hadn't even remembered the gifts you prepared for when he got back. It'd be best to give it to him now before you left your house. Can you wait here for a little while? I got something for you. Cove's eyes widened as he tried to conceal a smile. He toyed with the collar of his top.
Really?
I mean, you didn't have to do that. You nodded with some eagerness, trying to imagine how he'd react when he actually saw it. You bought Cove something special. The gift you chose had to have been something you could buy. I bought it. It was a dolphin-shaped balloon, a fruit bouquet, a new fish for his aquarium. Huh. I like the thought of these other two, but they're not very permanent, you know? A new fish for his aquarium. You went back up to your room, grateful that Cove hadn't spotted your present before now. The little container that was the temporary home for his new fish was waiting there for you, just as you'd left it. Very carefully, you cradled it in your arms to make the journey downstairs. You slowly descended the stairs, adjusting your grasp when you reached the ground floor so you can hold it out before you for Cove to admire. Cove gasped, placing a hand over his mouth, and bent down to watch the fish more closely. You can see the expression through the clear container, his eyes wide and eyed and adoring. You let Cove take his time admiring the fish in silence. A few moments later, after he'd taken his fill, he looked up at you with a joyful grin.
Wow.
She'll fit in perfectly with my tank. She looks great. He took the container from you, securing the base first and cautiously lifting it from your hand before resting it beside him on the counter. He brushed his fingers lightly against the top of the container, the closest he could get to petting his new companion, then turned back to you. Cove turned to look at the fish. He thought he was just admiring her again, but as moments stretched out, you wondered if it was something more. Though his face was angled away from you, he caught his eyelashes fluttering as if batting away tears. Aww. His throat bobbed as he swallowed bubbling emotions. You knew that Cove could be sentimental. The gift and all the memories and feelings tied up in it seemed to have taken a toll on him. When he began to sniffle, you felt the need to reach out. Cove? I can't. You just... See, I don't know what to do. He forcefully scrubbed at his eyes, like he was trying to push the tears that threatened to spill back in. Oh, Cove, it's okay. Do you need to cry? No. Nevertheless, tears had begun to spill down his cheeks. Even as he wiped them away, more took their place. Thank you. His voice quavered as he spoke. You're welcome. Don't worry about it. You're such a crybaby. He didn't wear it as you quietly accepts his appreciation. Don't worry about it. Cove let out a steady breath. It was far removed from the shaky gas that had accomplished his sniffles. The tear had dried out. His eyes were a little red, but open and at peace once again. He smiled fully, recovered from the emotion that had overcome him. You're really seriously too nice to me. He smiled back. I don't think there's such a thing as too nice when it comes to you. Cove brushed his hand against the pale ghost of a scar on his arm. He was at a loss for what to do now. The clock ticked away, counting the seconds of silence. Once you had a chance to settle your thoughts, you figured you'd tell Cove the intriguing news. I meant to tell you earlier. I saw Shiloh today. Shiloh? Cove repeated the name, his expression blank. From when we were kids. Cove pondered for a moment, then snapped his fingers. Oh, he was that freckly boy from that first summer, right? The one who moved. I met a guy named Shiloh. He looked just like the Shiloh we knew, plus however many years. But he didn't remember me and just left. Cove frowned. I don't know, too bad I missed it. Though you knew him better than I did. That was definitely true. Not only had Cove known Shiloh for a shorter period of time, but he and Shiloh had never quite gotten along. Not that they were enemies either, just kids who were only ever together because of other people that they both knew. I wonder what Shiloh's up to these days. I don't have any idea. He didn't say much. Well, that was everything you had on that news item, so you moved on to the next big update. Also, you know the mean old neighbors? The one who would always yell at us? He cringed, recalling those particular memories of back in the days was not pleasant, even for someone as nostalgic as him. Yeah? They're not coming. They didn't rent the condo this summer. Cove's jaw dropped. You didn't blame him. The elderly couple had been in an institution for as far back as you can remember, long predating Cove's arrival. Even now as a teenager, you found your neck pricking as you walked by their condo, half expecting a scolding for breathing the wrong way in the vicinity of their vacation home. It was strange to think of that coming to an end. Wow. Cove blinked, clearly struggling with the idea in the same way you had. I didn't see that coming. People being gone, people coming back. It feels like I've missed a lot. This has been a busy summer already. Well, you haven't missed the fireflies. They haven't shown up yet. Well, that's something, and they're not get left behind. There's still stuff to do. You nodded. The two of you headed out and traced the most familiar path you'd ever walked, the trip across the road over to Cove's house. It seemed that no sooner had the night begun than it was already at an end, and the dawn of a new day was soon upon you. The next morning, your belly was full of breakfast, and you were in a pleasant mood. You hoped the rest of the day follow suit. Later, you were meeting up with your friends, Cove, Miranda, and Terry, to go into town. It was all on short notice, but that was because everyone was just so excited that Cove was finally back home. Having a nice daydream? You blinked, pushing all your thoughts away and returning to reality. Your mom was watching you with a teasing smile. So, what's on the agenda today? I'm meeting up with some people. Well, I hope you and your friends have fun. Don't get into too much trouble. She winked at you. You knew both of your moms wanted you to enjoy every bit of the summer before all the big changes started. I'll try.
That'd be great.
But before you go gallivanting around the town, could you bring the mail in? I'm finishing up putting the dishes away over here. Alright. Thanks very much. Look at him, Asian. Not bad. As soon as you were outside your front door, you couldn't help but see Cove and his dad standing around in the road. They noticed you too.
Hey.
Hey there, Z. Hi, good timing. You should come join us. You waved at him, you hugged him, you gave him a high five, you gave him a nugget, you ruffled his hair. You waved at him. Cove couldn't quite meet your gaze, but as you approached, the corners of his mouth pulled into a smile. You noticed Mr. Holden was taking in the scene of you and Cove with a self-satisfied smile. Cove followed your line of sight and shot his dad an unimpressed look. For a moment, Mr. Holden seemed like he had a thought dancing on the tip of his tongue, but he decided to keep it to himself.
So,
What are you up to today? As far as I know, nothing too much. Me and Cove are meeting some friends in town later. Sounds like a plan to me. Yawning, Mr. Holden stretched his arm over his head. My boy and I have just been waiting around to see what the new neighbors are like. It was definitely his idea. I don't know how you're not interested in this. It's big news. Besides, only be polite to greet the new folks in town. Maybe it'll be a single dad and his son. You've been here too long if seeing a new person rent a condo is what you consider an exciting development. Yes, I'm dying to see the newcomers. Your response was just a shrug. I don't want to meet them. Well, anyone has to be better than the last tenants. I probably go with the last one.
I don't know.
I don't know. The house could be cursed, and we could keep getting ones that are progressively worse. He cracked a cheeky grin at his own joke. You could tell Mr. Holden was looking at the empty house, thinking about the nightmare that was the last tenants. He chuckled, turning to Cove. But that would be horrible. Knock on wood. Mr. Holden took one more glance at the currently vacant building and sighed dramatically. When he turned back to you and Cove, his whole body seemed deflated. There's no sign of them, and I still need to head over to work soon. Cove gave his dad a few reassuring pats on the back. Okay, I promise to keep an eye out. I can text you if anything happens. Really?
Of course.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean only until I have to meet up with Terry and Miranda. That still work? With a wide grin breaking out on his face, Mr. Holden looked absolutely thrilled to have his nosiness enabled. That works. He moved to firmly place both hands over Cove's shoulder, fixing his child with a firm stare. Son, you are my true ally in this world. Mr. Holden stood up straighter, letting Code go. He looked reinvigorated. Okay, with all that settled, I'll go make some money. That's always been the one thing I do best. Mr. Holden headed off to the garage with a big wave goodbye. Cove smiled the whole time you both watched his dad leave. You really liked Mr. Holden. Mr. Holden was one of your favorite people. Cove's dad was kind of a bother. You had mixed feelings of Mr. Holden. I really liked Mr. Holden. You had for a long time. As soon as he was out of sight, Cove sighed lightly. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Just not looking forward to waiting, I guess. I'll be hanging around the street a while. Good luck. See you later. I'll stick around to see the new neighbor. I can wait with you. Why don't I stay to see the new neighbor and keep you company? I can wait with you. You wouldn't abandon Cove there to wither on the road out of boredom. Really? Of course. I like keeping you company, remember? He stared at you a moment, smiling softly and thinking about his response.
Me too.
I like that too. Then his eyes fixated on you firmly. You're my true ally in this world. God, like father, like son. That got a fair amount of chuckles from you. He grinned the stoicism fading into his music. You're always good to me. You're lucky to have me. It's no problem. I can't help myself. You laughed and shook your head. You simply shrugged. I'd probably shrug. You really weren't sure how to respond to that, and you could tell Cove was watching you carefully. A smile on his face reached his eyes, and it made you feel electric. He then stepped over to his front porch steps, lazily taking a seat and leaning back on his arms. Our watch begins. Nodding in agreement, you joined Cove on the front porch steps. You both sat there in a comfortable familiarity as you settled in for a waiting game on the new tennis. The neighborhood was quiet, and you sighed contently, closing your eyes and feeling the light breeze. Eventually, you both perked up at the sound of a car. A taxi followed the noise, turning onto your street. Cove's eyebrows raised at that sight, and he sat up, straight on the stoop.
Oh?
It has to be them, right? Yeah, it's gotta be. Now that they were here, you couldn't help but feel just a bit curious. You wondered what kind of person would be living in the neighborhood for the summer. The taxi pulled to a stop as you expected in front of the now empty condo. It was on the same side of the street as your house, a few buildings further up. Without getting it to his feet, Cove tried leaning and tilting his head to get a view of the passenger door as it opened. The single occupant exited the cab. Huh? You could feel what Cove was in that moment. After the last renters, this new visitor was definitely not exactly what you expect. I'm guessing it's his mom, but I'm probably wrong. Oh, excuse me. You looking like Death the Kid over here, kinda. It was a young man, had to be close to your own age. He was dressed fully in an eclectic black, white, and gray outfit. Even his side-swooping hair matched the scheme. The only other pop of color was from something that couldn't easily be fashioned into submission. A pair of dark brown eyes, which you caught when he looked over at his audience. Hello, folks. Who might you be? We're the neighbors. The smile already prominent on his face curled further. It was cocky, but you didn't get the impression it meant something adverse. Hallelujah. You and Cove shared a familiar look with one another, bewildered even further. The color-coordinated man left it there, however, and with a firm click, he shut the door of his ride. Then he turned his back to you to retrieve a large, unsurprisingly black suitcase out of the trunk. Continuing on with his own business, he strolled forward and lightly tapped on the driver's side window with his knuckles, asking for them to roll it down. When it opened, he leaned down and rested his arms on the edge. You assumed he was thanking the driver for getting him there, considering he slipped them a tip during the brief chat. They shook hands, and then he pushed himself up and away from the taxi, with both arms giving the driver room to leave. The taxi pulled away, rolling carefully down the road and out of sight. Around a corner, the new renter had officially arrived. He left a suitcase on the ground, out of the way of the street, and sauntered over your way with the confidence of someone who had been invited to join. Cove finally stood up to greet this person. You followed suit.
Excellent.
Oh, that's his voice. I'm Baxter Ward. It's excellent to meet you, neighbors. You were standing on the side he was approaching from. When Baxter got close enough, he offered his hand to you first. You shook it. You offered to low-five him. You held your arms open to offer a hug instead. You kept your distance. I shook it. Baxter gripped your hand firmly to give a satisfying shake. Hi, Baxter. I'm Z. Hey, Z. I'm quite keen on getting to know you better this summer. We could be good friends. From your other side, Cove made a sudden sputtering noises. And you are? He lifted his hand out to Cove next. Cove shook his hand, still eyeing Baxter carefully. I'm Cove. Baxter, whose whole demeanor lit up for unknown reasons, his eyes shone as he studied Cove
Really?
a moment. No, wait, is that a nickname or your real name? It's just my name. Oh. Two guys on the screen, and now I can't voice anyone. It's just my name. Cove spoke mildly, having given that an explanation many times in the past, but it clearly charmed Baxter all the same. He tossed his head to one side with a laugh. Your parents knew exactly what they were doing. I can't imagine a more fitting name for the free face I'm seeing. Cove, that's gorgeous. Oh.
What?
It's really not.